everyone, welcome back to another video, and today it is another recap and review of the Boulet Brothers Dragula Titans Season 2, and I believe we're on episode 6, which is the Boulet Brothers Horror Picture Show. And today is going to be quite the fun one. But before we get started, I did just get back from seeing a Wicked for Good double feature. I just want to show you my cup that I got. It is so cute. It says, "Go on, you're free, fly, fly." It has this really cool alphabet topper on. And I got to watch both movies, and no spoilers, but it was amazing. You guys definitely have to go watch it if you guys have the chance to. But without further ado, let's get on with the review. So the contestants come into the long table room. We hear the Boulets little monologue. They just kind of talk about people hating the musical challenge from last year, but nothing too crazy. It just kind of, all these little monologues that they do are just usually just talking about the challenge that they're going to be doing this episode, so it's not really that important. But we get back into the room and the contestants talk about who's going to be coming back, and it was kind of really a big toss-up. Some of them are saying they want Blackberry to come back because Cynthia has been in the bottom a few times, but some people are saying that Blackberry is going to go home because they've had a lot of mishaps and that their run this season has been pretty inconsistent, which I would definitely agree with. We see that Cynthia actually came back, and I'm happy that Cynthia came back because I really like Cynthia's energy. Cynthia's always been a really funny character, and I always really love their energy. But it just kind of sucks that Blackberry went home because they were actually one of my tops this season. I was really hoping that they would do much better than they did this season, but I just kind of feel like they get really defeated really badly when their outfit doesn't go their way, because they're extremely ambitious, but just sometimes especially this season they were very ambitious, but it just wasn't really up to what they would want their standards to be. And then JK talks about how Sigourney is kind of coasting this season. They talk about JK's being oh, I've seen so much uniqueness and big concepts from every single one of these contestants, but Sigourney has been kind of coasting and kind of relying on safe concepts that don't really ruffle any feathers. And Sigourney kind of tries to defend herself, but kind of gives off a little bit of victim-y vibes, talking about I've been constantly picked on this entire season, which I kind of think is right. Everyone's kind of going after Sigourney. But she does kind of give off a little bit of a victim-y mindset, especially this season. But I just kind of feel like she's kind of going through this whole thing like she did her last season, where she was attacked a lot. But we'll talk about that more later when it comes to her kind of victim-y mindset this season. And then we get the Boulets introducing the challenge, which is going to be a kind of repeat of what they say is their worst challenge ever, because in their monologue they were talking about how everyone hated the first Dragula musical challenge, and I think for good reason. It was a big swing that they did, trying to do something different. But I just kind of feeling the reason why it was such a bad idea, like why people hated the challenge so much, was it much of the fact that it was a musical challenge and not everyone is not really musically inclined. It was if you don't have a lot of people that can actually sing, make the vocals backup tracks and not like live singing. And another reason is that challenge people thought like was basically a replacement for the Rosters of Rock challenge, which is probably subjectively, I don't know, some people like other challenges, but to a lot of people was and is the best challenge of any Dragula franchise. So for a random musical challenge for like a musical that not a lot of people probably haven't heard of, besides like people that watched the musical that they performed for last season, like I wasn't too bothered by it. It was kind of a little clunky, because a lot of people were trying to compare it to like a Drag Race musical challenge. But I don't think it was too bad. I think it was just kind of, they were ambitious about it, but they didn't really hit the mark, especially if they wanted to kind of replace it as a like Monsters of Rock-esque challenge. But I digress. So now we get onto kind of the pre-challenge stage, and everyone's kind of getting started with rehearsals, and everything is going, I think, all right. Like they're having some issues with like timing and things like that. And also everyone was given their roles beforehand, so there wasn't any like, oh, I'm picking this role, or like fighting for any roles like what Drag Race does sometimes. And then we get talks about like Eva doing theater for like 10 years, and everyone being like, oh, Eva's gonna be like doing the best this challenge, because like Eva has been doing theater for like years and years and years, since they were like 10 years old. Not 10 years, but since they were like 10 years old. And everyone's just kind of talking about like, oh, this is definitely Eva's challenge to lose, because Eva is definitely like the person to like look out for when it comes to like these musical performance challenges. And then we talk about like JK kind of brings up Cynthia when they're doing like their makeup, and JK talks about how like I think they were talking about Blackberry, and JK was bringing up how like Cynthia is like extremely resilient, like, and I will agree with that. Like even every single time that they're in the bottom or they're low, besides maybe the one time when Blackberry like said Cynthia's name in the first episode, they don't let it get to them. They like water us off a duck's back. They don't let it affect them that much, so they don't really want the whole rigmarole and the whole like being in the competition and being in the bottom multiple times get to them, and they're always constantly evolving, definitely. And I'll talk about this when we get to Cynthia in the challenge, but I feel like, yeah, definitely Cynthia has been constantly evolving, and they evolved so much, not even just from their original season to the Titans, but just in the competition itself. All right, so now let's get on with the actual challenge. So, let's start with the judges. So the Boulets come in this kind of more, I've never watched Rocky Horror, but I kind of read like some things out there like, oh, they're going from like, oh, kind of more conservative to like being more crazy. Because they actually had two looks for the runway. They had one for when they came out, when they do like their big introduction at the beginning of the runway. And then we get their like more crazy, more updo outfit in like the judges panel. But I think they, in the first look, they look really good. And it's just kind of like this sleek, kind of vintagey style black and red dress that's kind of bodycon. And then they have like this vintagey style hair with like kind of like the loaf bang and the vintage waves. And then in their second look, they have this really big kind of like Bride of Frankenstein kind of bubble hair with this like really cool like armory type of outfit, dress type of look. It kind of matches their outfits from the two different, but I kind of just wish they stuck to the one more over the top outfit. But I digress about that. And then we get our judges, which are Darren Stein, which is I believe a director and like a resident like Rocky Horror expert. And then we get I think Darren Stein has been around in the Dragula sphere for a while. I just don't really pay attention. But then we get Peaches Christ, which is a really big, prolific drag musical artist in the drag scene. They write a lot of parody musicals. Like I know Trixie and Katya did a rendition of Romeo and Michelle's high school reunion. Like their own, Peaches Christ did their own version with Trixie and Katya. They've done a lot of they're a really big figure in like drag musicals. And so it's like they brought him in a few times for musical challenges. I think they brought him in last year, I believe, for the other musical challenge. So I don't know if they wrote. I don't think they wrote this, no. But they'll definitely have some good insight during this challenge. All right, now let's go on to the actual challenge itself. And so the challenge was actually split up into two. We have a short like runway, like floor show section where everyone shows their looks. And then we have the actual musical challenge. So I'm going to be judging them I'm going to be talking about everyone individually, where I'm going to be talking about their look, and I'm going to be talking about the challenge. I know it's kind of different than what I did last week, where I like hardly talked about them in the challenge, because I feel like the musical challenge itself that time around wasn't as important as their actual floor show. But this time around, they focus a lot more on the actual musical challenge. Then look, they did focus both. The judges both focused on both. So I think this time around I want to like focus on both of them at the same time. So yeah, let's get started. So we're going to start with Abora. So Abora had this kind of cool pink like top, and they had kind of like these chap like pants. They had like a corset, and then they had this jacket that they pulled off, and they had this like wet kind of scraggly pink hair, and the looks were kind of supposed to be inspired from Rocky Horror, either taking direct inspiration from certain characters from Rocky Horror or trying to give their interpretation of like a character from Rocky Horror. I think Abora did more of an interpretation of like a character from Rocky Horror rather than actually taking like direct inspiration from a character. And I think it was like pretty well done. I liked the outfit. The hair was nice. But just the hair looked nice, but just kind of like a flat, wet wig, I feel like was not a good way to go. But I'll also say this, is that a lot of the looks that they present on the runway are also, some of them, looks that they wear in the challenge. So they, like with Drag Race, they have completely separate costumes, but for Dragula they had to bring their own costumes and have them kind of be like, oh, this is both part of the challenge in the musical and part of the floor show runway. So that's why it's kind of different. So they have to bring their own costumes rather than their costumes being provided like on Drag Race. I know I shouldn't be like really comparing Drag Race and Dragula, but I'm just kind of talking about it as like a kind of observation that I noticed. But it doesn't really have that much of an impact on my critique on the outfit. But I think the outfit looked pretty nice. And Abora, I think they probably were one of the weaker people in the challenge. Like, they were pretty off with the timing, and they were pretty like kind of slow, like not really giving as much energy as like Jaharia and Eva, because they were part of the Fang gang in this part. Oh, and let me also talk about the challenge itself. So the musical is like it's not a direct like, oh, this is like something from Rocky Horror. It's like a Rocky Horror inspired scene where it's like, oh, we have this preacher and their congregation, and they're these kind of prissy conservative Christian folk, and then they learn to like not sequester their desires and their like true selves through like in the name of like religion. And so like there was the kind of the congregation, and then we had the Fang gang, and Abora was part of the Fang gang, and I think they didn't really they had like some good moments, but they kind of didn't have that, like the dance moves weren't like the greatest, and like even during like the rehearsals they were also having issues. All right, next up we have Jaharia. So Jaharia, their look was like another look that they did that was in the challenge. Like some of them like wore different looks. There, I think it was just maybe Jaharia. I think it was just the Fang gang that had similar outfits in the challenge, or like wore the exact same outfit from the floor show to the challenge. And Jaharia had this really pretty, like it was like this kind of tight, like glittery, kind of burlesque dress, and it had like all these kind of like military style patches and pins. It was super glittery and rhinestoney, and it had this really beautiful like feather like skirt bottom. And I thought that it was kind of like even like military kind of flapper girl type of deal. But then they did, I've been seeing a lot of people do like the review where they pull up like a rope or something from the middle, and like they reveal and like the dress comes off. And the outfit underneath, it was kind of giving Frankenfurter from Rocky Horror vibes. I've seen Rocky Horror. I watched it once, like fully, and my first time ever seeing it, I remember seeing like a few scenes when I was like in freshman year of high school at like a friend's like Halloween party, but I remember more of the movie, but I haven't watched it in a while. But I know this corset type of look was very much giving like Frankenfurter type of vibes with like the corset. But I understand like Jaharia she's not big, but she's bigger than a couple of the other contestants. But the corset was just kind of, it wasn't really doing much, but I understand, like, I'm not going to harp on it too much about that. But it's just like the outfit underneath has to be equally as good as the look that they wore. But if the look was just, it was like in All Stars 1, where Manila was like, oh, the big reveal, and Mimi Imverse was taking off her outfit, and there was just like a like mini cocktail dress. So like it wasn't like that great of a look underneath, but the overall look was pretty good, like the first look. And then let's talk about the actual challenge. The challenge, they did really well. They performed well. Their like movements were great. Their singing was amazing. Like when you can hear like their vocals, their singing was just like really good. I really liked it. But unfortunately, we'll get to it soon. They were pretty overshadowed by Eva. Because I'll get this out of the way. Eva did great, but I'll talk about more of that later when I get to Eva. But they did really well, but they were kind of overshadowed by Eva. Alright, now let's get on to JK. And JK had a completely different look from their performance look because they were the preacher in the congregation group. And they, JK, did it very much like over exaggerated Rocky from Rocky Horror. And Rocky is like this, like, male, like, this, like, attractive male companion to Dr. Frankenfurter. And JK did this, like, really exaggerated, like, muscle suit. And they were painted, like, gold because Rocky in the movie wore like gold briefs in the movie, and so they painted their whole face gold and the whole body was gold, and they had like red briefs on compared to like the movie. And the funny thing is that they were kind of wrapped up in like bandages, like they were a mummy or like they were coming out of surgery, because Frankenfurter, it was kind of like a Frankenstein type of thing. But it was not intentional, but JK's heel broke, which was like, I was like rewatching the episode, doing my notes, and I was like, why is JK like limping and like walking like the heel, like why does the heel look like that? And I didn't notice at the beginning, when they were doing like a spin, like they were being unwrapped from their bandages, their whole heel, the whole bottom of, because they were wearing like these like platform like dancer heels, like, and the whole heel broke. So only it was like the foot pad, the whole it wasn't like, oh, the heel broke, but like the whole bottom of it just like came clean off, and they were like, it was still connected to the shoes, so they were just like waddling. And I thought that was kind of funny, but it kind of fit the character because Rocky's kind of like this like himbo kind of dumb type of character in the movie, so it kind of was fitting. And in the challenge, they were one of the standouts. They were the best in the congregation. I know JK is a good performer, but JK really surprised me. Like, I know JK does really well, but JK like did really well this challenge. It just kind of sucks because like if Eva was just like not there, if Eva was not in this season, JK would have probably won this challenge and probably many other challenges. But JK still did really well. But the one thing is, they didn't sing. Like, in the like talking heads when they were like getting ready for the challenge, they were talking about that they chose the preacher because the preacher had the least like they didn't have to commit to singing. Like they didn't really have to do this. So JK like didn't sing. They didn't even attempt to sing. They didn't really do much singing. They just kind of did like some talk singing, but they didn't like actual like try to sing like the rest of the competition, which I think kind of like set them back a little bit, at least I think. But everything else was pretty good. Really liked it. Alright, Sigourney Beaver. So let's talk about the look. The look, great. Loved it. Really safe. I love Sigourney with my life. Love of my life, sister of my dreams. When she talked about in the preparation, like, oh, I'm going for something safe and recognizable. And she went safe. Like, I'll say in the judging, they talked about how her jacket looked exactly, because they were wearing like kind of this like laboratory jacket, and then they revealed to like this kind of corsety, kind of giving Frankenfurter type of look. And it looked, I had to agree, it looked a lot like their season 4 finale performance where they were like a mad scientist and they were wearing like this white coat, and then this challenge they wore a black coat and it looked almost identical. And I have to say, like, I love Sigourney with my heart and soul, but this was just kind of like they've done so good these past challenges. It's just like they were just safe. They didn't really try to experiment or do anything different, and it kind of hindered them a lot. And I felt bad because in the challenge they did pretty good, like both her and Cynthia, because Cynthia and Sigourney were the like disciples in the congregation, and they both had kind of probably the hardest challenge to do in this, is because they had to stand out because they were the smallest roles, some of the smallest roles in the challenge. And Sigourney, she did good, but it was just kind of like good. It was just good. Wasn't great, wasn't bad. It was just good. How I said good was just, I've been so into the clip from the Brady Bunch movie, the first one, where Jan was talking about her new boyfriend, George Glass, and how she was like, his name is George. Like how I said, like, it's good. And I've just been so into that clip because I never like really watched that clip besides just the Sure Jan part, and how like Marsha was just like, I've never been a George Glass and I was cute. I just thought it was so. I've just been thinking about that clip. I've been playing that clip on YouTube and on Shorts. I've been seeing that everywhere, and it is just hilarious. Like, Glass, George Glass. It's so funny. But I digress. It was just, the look and the outfit was safe. The performance was good, a little safe, pretty middle of the road. But, you know, what can you do? Love Sigourney though. But it was just like, I've been thinking about this, like, I talked about it like the first ever episode, but I don't think I ever like kind of reiterated it after that. I'm just giving the opinions that I have, but my opinions like hold as much weight as any person that has never done drag before. A lot of people critique drag like they've done drag their whole life, but I'm just someone who loves watching the show, who loves every person that's come on the show, well, almost every person, but it's just that I want the best for everyone, so I feel sad when I have to give like bad critiques to people. So yeah, I'm never giving these critiques as someone as like, oh, they just bad. I don't like them. I think their drag is bad. When I'm like, girl, you don't do drag. You want to do drag, but you're not doing it now. You don't have the experience of everyone else. So like, you can give critique, but it doesn't hold that much weight. It just holds weight to you. But yeah, so enough of my whole spiel. Let's move on to the next contestant, which is Cynthia Dahl. Now, this was probably my favorite look out of the entire group of contestants. It was just so good because when people do Frankenfurter, they do just kind of like the spit curl hair and the corset, and like they don't really go out of the box, but Cynthia did the impossible, make a new kind of version of Dr. Frankenfurter. Like, they were kind of going for like this Frankenfurter that's also been experimenting with body modification, and they had this really ornate, really like structured kind of like lab coat. They had like the plasma balls, they had this really big hair and other things I won't talk about, but it was really good. I really loved it. Was like probably it was definitely one of my top looks of the season, I'll have to be honest. Cynthia, when it hits, like Cynthia honestly is kind of underrated when people come with their looks. Like sometimes Cynthia doesn't do great, but when it hits, it hits. But in the challenge, it was, I think it was all right. I'll say it was probably not as good as like Sigourney's, but they had some really good moments, like in like their performance. It was just kind of middle, kind of lower of the road. Not the greatest, but the look was amazing. But the performance was not as good, I will say. Love Cynthia, love the look, just the performance was just not that great. And now let's get on to Eva Destruction. Now, Eva Destruction, I'll just say, no notes. Did amazing in the challenge. Their performance was amazing. They did really well with the performance, with their attitude, with their physicality, with their face, with their speech. But then we get to the look. The look was good, but they were kind of going for like Rocky Horror Clown. But in Rocky Horror, they didn't really give clown in the show. They had like, clown-ish antics, but they didn't really have clowns. But in the challenge, they kind of had a similar look in the challenge, but with just like not the clown motifs and stuff. And they kind of look better. Like the clown look itself wasn't like the clown didn't like they were doing some fun tricks. But the coat that they had, I think was my favorite part. It was like this pink and blue kind of neon-y furry coat, like which I definitely want one day. But just the look, like giving clown, which is kind of like a weird choice. But overall, they did amazing in the challenge, but just the look itself didn't really hit. And now let's go on to the deliberations of the Boulets. And they talked about how like I'll definitely say this challenge was definitely a vast improvement from last season, from season 6's from season 6's musical challenge. They did really well. They performed amazingly. And they had actual background vocals. They had good choreography. And not like last season. But I really like this challenge. I feel like they're really picking their stride with the musicals. If they keep going like this, I feel like it'll be really good. And then they talk about how Eva was a big standout, but they didn't like the look. They talked about Cynthia not really standing out, and talked about JK, and how JK also had a really good performance. And then when we get to the judging, they liked JK, they liked Deborah's, but they said they liked Deborah's, but noticed their faults. But I'm like, it wasn't just like faults. It was just like it wasn't like, oh, they kind of messed up a little bit. You can definitely notice that Deborah was not doing that good in the challenge. Like, not good in the choreography. Which sucks, but I don't think Deborah is like that much of a dancer. Which I'm not either, so same girl. And then they talked about Jaharia having good physicality, but being upstaged by Eva, and talking about how Eva was a really big standout, but the look was not as good as the performance. But then they talk about Sigourney having a good performance, but told her that she's being kind of an outfit repeater. And then they said that Cynthia's look was good, but they thought the challenge was just they were a bit small compared to the rest, because everyone is such huge performers that Cynthia was just kind of faded in the background compared to the rest of them. And then we get the winner of the challenge, which is Eva Destruction. Who knew Eva Destruction was going to do good in the musical challenge when even though they've been doing like musical theater since they were 10 years old? Who knew a theater kid would do good in the theater challenge? But good job for Eva. But we get a twist. Ooh, a twist. What's this twist? They tell Eva that the elimination is in her hands. They say that, Eva has one use of the sonic transducer, and they have to pick someone to zap and evaporate immediately from the competition. So basically, Eva gets to pick whoever she wants to eliminate from the challenge, eliminate from the competition. So we get to the cauldron, and we hear everyone pleading their case to Eva about why they should stay. And everyone pleads their case, giving a good reason to why they should stay. And then we get to Sigourney. And Sigourney is doing something really weird. They're trying to kind of manipulate Eva into being like, we have like a thing together where we all wanted to be in the top together, and then we find out that like it just kind of Sigourney was just kind of like, you and I, us, like her and like Eva and Deborah were like us top 3, and she was kind of making it sound like a pact, but it was just like they didn't agree to anything. And then Sigourney was like, what's gonna happen, like, me, you don't want to do this and stuff like that. And they just weren't really pleading their case that well. They just kind of were saying like how good I am, like I've been doing this for years, and like I'm like one of the most talented people, and like what I've been through and stuff like that. Sorry for that like abrupt cut. Like my mom was asking me about something, but Sigourney was just kind of talking about like, I've gone through so much, and like you don't know like the hardships that I've been through. And then she's kind of, I don't know what it was, but she was talking about like, I've like gone through so much, or like talking about being something about like talent and stuff. And then Jahari was like, well, you don't think us is like talent and stuff. And then Sigourney was talking about like, you don't get pushed away because of your body. But then she said that to Jaharia and JK, who are 2 black competitors. Like, you can't, like, she really dropped the ball with that. Like, I love Sigourney, I love everything she does, but that was just kind of a weird comment to say. Like, it's just kind of really weird that you would say that to 2 black competitors. Because, like, you've all been through some terrible stuff. Like, we're all, like, outcasts. Like, we can't be, like, saying, like, one person's struggles are worse than the other in some scenarios. Like, as queer people, we've gone through so much. But, like, you can't say, like, as, like, a woman in this space, I have been through so much. But then you say that to 2 black competitors who probably have been through who have definitely been through the same struggles as Sigourney. So it was just a really weird comment to say, and it kind of rubbed me the wrong way, definitely. But it's not really my conversation to say. Like, I'm just, like, giving my opinion on it, so I definitely would look at, like, black and POC people's perspective when it comes to this kind of conversation. Because all I can just give is my opinion. I can't really say what's right and what's wrong in this situation. But now we get back into the floor show, where Eva has to pick who is going to get eliminated from the competition. And Eva decides to pick Sigourney. And Sigourney is mad. Like, after the, like, everyone, after all this stuff happened, you hear, like, backstage audio where Sigourney was basically like, you will rue the day, Eva, that you decided to eliminate me, and stuff like that. And then we get to the showdown, and it's Priscilla versus Blackberry, and Blackberry wins the showdown. But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and follow all my socials down the doobly-doo. Now, without further ado, hope you guys enjoyed this video, and hope you guys have a nice and safe day. Bye!